Hello there, moin moin ladies and gentlemen, Donspektor here, today with another IEM review. And I have for you today the Rose Technics Quiet Sea. Yes, thank you again very much Rose Technics for sending this over for review. But disclaimer here as usual, why they sent it over have not asked me to say anything positive or negative for that matter. And yeah, everything in this review is exactly my own thought and how I found it myself. So first, as usual, before we look in the IEM, quick packaging accessories. That's the outside box here. This is actually not printed, it's like kind of stamped in. Looks pretty nice. Unfortunately, this box is very difficult to remove because it's just the outside, as you can see here. From the inside box, which looks like that. This is closed with a magnet at the front. Feels very nice and like thick cardboard, well made, as you can see. You get this, whatever that means. Unfortunately, I don't speak Chinese. And then here, the exploded schematic of the IEM. And beneath that, here would be the actual IEM inside here. And here are accessories. And yeah, as accessories, let's directly take a look at this next. We have the carrying case, which looks like this. It's on the bigger side, but still, yeah, just the right size, I would say. It is a bit floppy, as you can see here. Like if you press it, it deforms a bit. But should keep your IEM nice and safe. I really like the zipper here, easy, just get your finger in, zip it close. And besides one corner, the zipper is also relatively smooth. But this corner here is a bit, like you need to apply some pressure in order to get it over. But generally this is a well-made carrying case at this price point. And also like the inclusion of the mesh here, so you can get your other accessories in. And of the other accessories, well, you do get this here. This is the tips it comes with. These are totally fine. I don't have many complaints here. They are a bit floppy for my liking. And as you can see here, they are oval. So that also makes them rather unique. But you don't need oval tips as a quick already spoiler here for this IEM. You can just put your round tips on and they will just deform just fine. You don't get foam tips or anything else, so that's the only set of tips you get. And yeah, the last thing that you get as accessory, and I kept the best for last. Really, Rose Technics, I want to applaud you for including this handy dandy little tool with it. This is an MMCX opener, and yes, the Rose Technics Quiet Sea is an MMCX IEM, and boy, I have been missing this with basically all MMCX IEMs I've had so far. It's some of them at least, the newer, the tight connectors, it's a pain to remove. Like usually I try to get a pocket knife somewhere close to it and try to hit the ring just right in order to open it. With this here, it's a breeze, and I really, really like to see this inclusion. Like, thank you very much, Rose Technics. This is an awesome decision, and I like to see this with basically all MMCX IEMs out there. Give me this tool, it's awesome. Okay, next, I think we take a look at the cable before we go to the IEM. Yep, that's the cable it comes with. And if you ask, damn, it looks like a good cable for 50 bucks. Yeah, this is a really good cable for 50 bucks. So first, you get these twisted, I think 4 cores it is, or is it 2 cores, not 4 cores. And yeah, those are also already on the medium thicker side. And that means this cable, if you just flop it down, you can see it just stays straight, just tiny bit deformed, but it stays as is. And in everyday life, this is basically tangle free. Like this is basically how I had it, like it's barely tangled at all, but I just had it in my backpack like that. And that's pretty nice to see. And yeah, also, when we come to the details now, this is maybe this took out of the yolks, the biggest criticism I have. This connector here is, as you can see, it's shiny and it does have no texture, so it's a bit slippery, bit difficult to grip if you put it into some connectors that are a bit more tight. So I like to see this at least a bit textured or better shaped, so it's just easier to grip. And then a bit above that, we have the actual strain release. It does release some strain here, as you can see. Does the job. Just think it should be still a bit longer to do a bit better job, but overall, strain release, I like to see that. And then we come to actual 4 cores here. And as I said, those are on the medium thick side and they are braided. So generally, this feels very solid and I don't think you will be able to break this cable in a reasonable amount of time. One small criticism is well, the actual twisting here is not the most equal as you can see here in the picture. It's totally fine, like there isn't much to criticize at this price point, but I have done better twisting jobs at a bit more expensive price points, to be honest though. And then we come more on top and we come to the actual splitter. I like this design. I think this splitter is pretty damn cool. And yeah, it features also the aesthetic of the connector and the actual IEM. And then let me quickly untangle at least this from the ear hook here, so we don't have a knot. Then we come to the actual 2 cables that go on top of that, so the with chin slider. This is the same thickness. I like to see this again, and generally it feels again well made. And last but not least, we have a chin slider. It gets the job done. It is movable, not too difficult, but it has enough friction so it actually stays in place when you actually mount it. I like to see this. I want to see more companies doing a chin slider, but it's actually working because it's helpful. And then we go further on top to the ear hooks. And here you can see the ear hooks. Those are on the more thick rubberized side of things. The actual bending radius, as you can see here, is fine though. Like there isn't much to criticize here. This is the right size. It for some years maybe a bit small. And bending was also done, as you can see, basically exactly the same radius with both cables. So that's nice to see. One point that I want to show or point out here. You can see this is, again, very textured, so this might create some hotspots over your ear when it lies at the back or on top of your ear here. And I wouldn't heat shrink this, honestly. I would say just put it over here, the cable, just form it, but don't heat shrink it around the wires. It will look a bit more floppy around it, but it will just be more comfortable for longer periods of time. And then last but not least, the MMCX connector here. I think this actually is a steel shell, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it also, again, let me show you the chin slider here. Matches chin slider, matches the splitter, and last but not least, matches the connector. So again, nicely color matched. And you have an L and R indicator here that is printed on black on the metal here. Is readable. I would still like to see a red ring here or here. Like, give me some color coding. That's just easier to distinguish. Overall, though, for this price point, the cable is really good. I like the cable. There are some small nitpicks here and there, but it's a really good cable. And I would be absolutely happy to get this cable even with a 100 buck IEM. Really like it. And then next, let's talk about IEM build here. So, we already had the cable, right? Let's talk about it. Connector, MMCX, the tight one. So you will actually need this tool in order to open it, because otherwise it's a bit difficult to remove. That means though that this actually can twist, as you can see, with some pressure. So just make sure when you get this to adjust the IEM exactly how you need it in the angle for your ear, because this is, while twistable, it has a very high friction. So that means it will basically not twist in your ear. And depending on your ear size, you might want to twist it a bit inwards, like that, like slightly inwards twisted, or maybe if you have bigger ears, twist it slightly outwards. So this is a comfort feature. Some of you will probably use it, others might not because you have just normal sized ears. And for me, basically a tiny bit outwards, like maybe 5 degrees or so, was the best result I got in terms of comfort. And yeah, then you can also see there's an L indicator on the inside of the shell right about my finger here, there. Somehow my camera doesn't want to sharpen it now, but yeah, here's the L indicator. Not the best spot to put the L indicator in my opinion, or the side indicator. Better would be somewhere on top here, but here's a bit hidden, or maybe in the inside, but not there. And then again, printing white on silver is also not the best decision. Color coded again would be great. Print the L here in blue. Everybody knows how that's working. But other than that, I think this, for the price point, again, that's a very good build IEM. This is a 3-piece design. That means you have the inside of the shell here, which is, yeah, metal, so you can probably see. And here, that is metal. And this IEM generally feels well made. It's a bit on the heavier side, but not too heavy. And on the inside of the shell, we can already start with some details. You can see a pressure out here, which, as far as I can see, also has a mesh inside. So there's no need to worry about getting dirt in your IEM. There's a mesh and it will protect it. Then also here, oval, as you can see, that's very unique on the market. And generally it does get the job done pretty well. And also inside the metal mesh here is mounted just right. Like, I have no criticism here. It seems to be glued in well. And yeah, seems to be generally well made. Side of the IEM, I don't know, I find this like frosted gray pretty cool. You can see the driver inside. And while the seams unfortunately are not the best around here, like you can see them and you can also feel them with your finger, it still feels overall still well enough made, and the tolerances are small enough that I wouldn't fault the IEM at this price point. And that's the second part, this plastic around here, which yeah, you can see the electronics through. And the third part is the part of the faceplate here, which I think is also metal. I'm not entirely sure about that though. You can see the printing Quiet Sea on it, and you have a pressure hole on this side. And yeah, generally, I think this feels like a well-made IEM at this price point, and I don't really have many criticisms. One thing what I want to say, everyone, well, remember this is a tight MMCX, so be careful when you remove the cable. That could damage your IEM if you don't do it right. Use, yep, come here, tool, use the included tool. Very important. Okay, next, let's talk about comfort and fit. So, this is, as you can see, the angle has been well chosen in my opinion. The length is on the medium longish side, but the nozzle is oval, and I will list the measurements just here now in the video so you can see them for yourself. But overall, I think Rose Technics really nailed the comfort with this one. It's really comfortable. Like basically all tips I tried on this worked for me, and it just stays in my ear almost perfectly, I would say, and it's comfortable and it doesn't make me feel any weird things. It just stays there just fine. So this is a very well-fitting IEM, and I have absolutely no complaints here. I would actually go the opposite and would say, really good job, Rose Techniques. For a non-semi-custom shell IEM, this is basically as good as it gets. And then next, isolation. And while I was pretty positive so far, unfortunately, in terms of isolation, it ain't too great, I have to admit. So first I expected more. It's a metal shell IEM. This metal is on the thicker side, but unfortunately overall, because it's not that semi-custom, and I think also the plastic here is on more the thin side, it doesn't isolate that well. And compared to about the Star City 5 Pro, which they also sent over, this is about on par. That means it's not great isolating, and I wouldn't recommend it for outside at busy roads or so. But overall, it's fine, it gets the job done, and in the office or on more quiet roads, it's okay. Keep in mind, though, similar to the Quiet Sea, with the Quiet Sea to the Star City 5 Pro, well, there's a pressure hole here, and that means it's a bit wind sensitive. I think this is a bit less wind sensitive than the Star City 5 Pro, but if you're on the outside and it's windy, you will hear it with this IEM. So yeah, keep that in mind as well. Next, drivability, and this is rated at 32 ohms at 99 decibels, so that means it's not the most efficient single DD IEM, but it's also not inefficient by any means. And yeah, in real life, this translates to an IEM that I think generally you can drive with basically every dongle out there. I used a random USB-C dongle and it just worked fine. No complaints there. Upping the power a bit to something like the Up 5, which is like 240 milliwatts. Yeah, I think you get a bit better dynamics, a bit better imaging, and yeah, a bit better staging probably, but not a lot. And upping the power even more to my topping D50 and A50 home stack, well, you don't get more at all, like it just stays as is, like, which means it's relatively good there. So in terms of percentage, in terms of drivability here, I think this gets you like 85% of the way with your random USB-C dongle. And next, let's come to the core part of all IEMs. We are talking about the sound, and first, general sound characteristics. I will throw you on measurements again with my IC711 coupler, and yeah, you will be able to find this also on my quick link linked below, so you can see for yourself how this measures. So what is this IEM? This is a very bright V-shaped IEM, and it has a good amount of mid and upper bass too. And it directly brings me then to the treble department, and positive things first, yeah, this extends past 10K. The coupler I think shows it until like 12K or so, and to my ear, yeah, it extends a bit past 10K, but not a lot. But enough to give you still a relatively detailed feeling, especially because the peak that you can see in the graph is quite strongly pronounced. Yeah, that's also how it sounds in real life. And that means it comes off as detailed, a bit grainy at times, but not too bad. And overall, the upper treble department it sounds a bit artificial to me. Like it sounds at the same time that you lack the uppermost registers, but also a bit grainy, probably because to do high peak at 11K. And I think for this price point, this is absolutely acceptable. Like there's not much to complain about upper treble department. And then directly go down to mid-treble. And yeah, there's a dip around like 7-ish K, so that means generally this shouldn't be sibilant for like most people at all. And yeah, unfortunately though, combined with the huge 9K peak and the big 5K peak, well, yeah, I'm sorry, like, but the mid-treble department isn't good at all. Like it's simply too much. Combine this even with I think I can summon the whole mid to lower treble department up. It's too much. I threw on the graph that you can see here. Yeah, it measures really bright and it sounds really bright. And I think if I would have just pushed down the 2.5K peak by like 4 or 5 decibels, it would have been way more pleasant listening. For reference here, I threw in the Shanling ME500, which is granted a bit of an outdated IEM, but I still like it from time to time, and it is definitely on the bright side, but somehow it's still enjoyable to me. And the Quiet Sea here doesn't strike this balance at all. The lower treble comes off as really sharp, like to a point where I think most people will find this shouty. Like it's not pleasant, and the overall tonality is also off. Because you have way too much 2.5K energy combined with too much 5K energy, and when the dip that is like harmonish after that, like it just sounds unnatural to my ears. Like I put this in, and really first thing that I noticed of mid-treble was it sounds off. It's just not right to me. Combined again with the shout that it has in the lower mids and the really sharpness that it has there, it just doesn't work that well. Granted though, it depends again what music you're listening to. I noticed here, for instance, Takanaka, it's like a Japanese fusion jazz artist. Most of his stuff actually sounds alright with the Quiet Sea. Like when the details or like the off in tonality doesn't matter that much. But if you go to like more metal or something like that, I noticed, yeah, it's not great. Linkin Park didn't work well, the Cyberpunk soundtrack didn't work well, Iron Maiden didn't work well, and really, like, in my opinion, the mid-treble and lower treble is a huge blunder with the Quiet Sea, and I would strongly recommend Rose Technics push down 2.5K and 5.5K, and probably also push down 9K. Push it down by like 4 to 5 decibels, makes it way more enjoyable, way more, like, I want to say, like often an all-rounder, that's what I'm looking for. Now it's so bright that you need a really dull track to make it kind of exciting. But if you have an exciting track, it just is too much. It will just not be fun at all. And that then continues, unfortunately, to the mids. And I mean, you can see the mids, it's a V-shaped IEM, it's very bright. The mids are absolutely recessed. They disappear in the mix. They take a backseat compared to the upper mids and to the mid-treble, also to the bass department. And yeah, adding to this, the staging of the mids isn't great, it's not that well separated, so that means they definitely do get lost in the mix. But then we come to bass, and yeah, here definitely gets a bit better. It is a V-shaped IEM, so you get mid bass, you get upper bass, you get warmth in the lower mids, and that means the bass tonality here is pretty well chosen in my opinion. Like, it sounds like it has some heft. It sounds a bit weighty in the bass without coming off as too much, and performance quality, I mean, is also pretty decent at this price point. It's not too slow, it doesn't come off as like a planar at all on that, so it's relatively dynamic here. And the only problem that I see might be sub bass. Yeah, extension, while on graph, as you can see, just extends to 20 Hz, no problem. In real life, in my benchmark track, which is from Interstellar, the track Mountains, there's a sub bass drop starting at like 2 minutes, going all the way to 2 minutes 16. And here, yeah, it manages 2 minutes 14, which is pretty average. 2 minutes 15 on higher volumes, which is a bit above average. So overall, while the sub bass is not the greatest textured one, it is available, and yeah, it gives you some weight there. And then next, let's talk about the other technicalities, and as usual, soundstage, layering, and imaging. And yeah, what should I say? This is actually pretty decent. It gets you some sense of space. Most of my music actually, yeah, was layered reasonably here. Like 3 layers is most of the time the case that you get with this, right? But you do have at least a sense of soundstage going on there. And also the imaging is pretty on point. Like, you can game with this without any issues. I threw on Sandstorm, it immediately worked for me. So while this is not super impressive with performance here, I also have absolutely no criticism here. It's absolutely fine for the price point. And then, yeah, we come to separation, dynamics, and coherence, as well as timbre. And yeah, separation and dynamics are actually pretty decent, this one. This comes off as relatively dynamic. Not the most dynamic, but still relatively dynamic. And I would say better than, for instance, the Star City 5 Pro that I also have here. And coherence, because it's a single DD IEM, it is relatively coherent. The problem with this though is, again, when it comes to timbre, it just sounds off. The way Rose Technics tuned this doesn't work for the timbre at all. With EQ, you just push down 2.5K and 5K. I think generally you can push down the entire treble region by like 5 decibels or 4 decibels, and then just give the boost at like 7K again by like 3-4 decibels after that. So counter the overall counterclockwise tilted treble boost then. So overall, unfortunately, timbre ain't the greatest here just because the tuning is off. But if you would EQ it, I think the timbre is fine. Like, it doesn't come off as too metallic. And just a bit grainy on top. But overall, again, for this price point, there ain't much to complain here in terms of, separation, dynamics, and coherence. And then let's come to the verdict. And, it's a bit difficult. So, some parts of the Quiet Sea I really like. Like, again, the inclusion of the MMCX tool, really nice to see. The cable is great, the IEM build is good, the comfort is great. When it comes to sound, unfortunately, Rose Technics blunders a bit here, and it's just too bright. Like, I would really strongly recommend, if you like everything else here, the package, and you get this, EQ down everything past 2.5K. Give it a shelf filter, put it to 4 decibels, bring it down, and then you probably be able to enjoy this without many issues. Like, maybe use 5 decibels if you want it more neutral, and then this is probably an enjoyable IEM. But as it stands now, it's just too bright. Like, even for me as somebody who likes bright IEMs, like, I like, again, the ME500, let me quickly throw this in. I like the ME500, and it's pretty bright. But this here, it misses the mark. Like, it misses the mark to me by, I said 4 decibels at least, and it's just not enjoyable for most of my library. And I can see some people probably still like this because you can listen to this at low volume without any issues. Like, it will still sound detailed. But as soon as you go up to, like, let's say 55 decibels or so, it's not pleasant to my ear. And unfortunately, that means I cannot recommend the Quiet Sea based on the tuning alone that Rose Technics choose here. If we would fix the tuning, just as a 2.5K and above, everything down by 4 decibels, I think this can be a really good recommendation at the price point. But as it stands now, I just can't, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, if you have recommendations, if you have criticisms, please leave a comment. Donspektor out.